Hey guys, welcome to another class. Title of the class today, those who sweat more in training bleed less in war. Okay, those who sweat more in training bleed less in war. Sixth factor of the Noble Eightfold Path, right effort. Brother Paul went to see his physician and said to him, "Listen, doc, I've been womanizing like crazy. I've been misbehaving like crazy, drinking and so on, partying. And it's happening more and more frequently, doc. And it's troubling me deeply. My conscience, it's troubling me deeply." So the doctor says to him, "So you want me to prescribe something to strengthen your willpower?" And Paul protests and says, "No, no, not at all. I want you to give me something to weaken my conscience." Crazy. Yeah. Can you identify with this fellow? Most people are like Brother Paul. They want to weaken their conscience. How do we do it? We don't need physician. Busyness. Weaken the conscience for what really matters. Distractions, trivia, procrastination. Oh, close cousins. Dimming our conscience as to what really matters. Mm-hmm. Now, what happens when we dim our conscience? When we weaken this conscience through distractions and trivia and busyness and procrastination, what happens? In this form of living, how do we gain traction in our practice? How do we acquire the right training in our practice to face and surmount the endless challenges we have to go through in any given lifetime? How? Totally unprepared. And therefore, stress, anxiety, illnesses, relationship fiascos, all because conscience suppressed, not skillful, not skillful at all. So how do you understand the title of this class? What training is required? Do you remember the story of the Greek general from the last class? The fellow who was assigned to this insultingly low post to take care of the city's sewers in Thebes. Yeah? By his rivals, the guys who were jealous of him. Yeah, there he was, this fellow, brilliant fellow, asked to take on the appointment to oversee this city's sewers. Huge challenge for most people. But was his conscience perturbed even in one little bit? Nope. Was he disturbed? Did he get angry, resentful, despairing? No, his conscience was in super shape because of the years of training that preceded this event. He was prepared. He had sweated bucketfuls of sweat in his training. No bleeding in the war. None. War. Yeah. No suffering when life presents us with a challenge we would rather do without. Another thing about that story. Did you think deeply about that story? Well, here's a deeper perspective. Would this fellow, this brilliant general and statesman, would he have willingly selected that role? Willingly? Would he have selected it? Or was his awareness towards better prospects? Of course it was towards better prospects. He would never even have thought of going down that road. And yet, the good Lord put him there. Why? It wasn't the rivals. It wasn't those beings who were jealous of him that put him there. That's surface appearances. What put him there was God's hand. Yeah? What put him there was the good Lord, through these rivals and those jealous beings. They were instrumental in serving the good Lord to put a good man in a position that required a good man, so that that lowly office could be transformed into one that was honorable and respected throughout the land. That's how mysteriously the good Lord works. From our everyday perspective, we think, God, look at those guys. How could they do this? They're just serving the Lord. They have their place in this world. The point is that every challenge, every difficulty, every trauma, every crisis, when seen in the right light, is a blessing in disguise. And those who have sweated bucketfuls in their training welcome every challenge as a means for perfecting themselves. Okay? No avoiding, no denying, no fearing challenges. Blessings that come from beyond to perfect us. So let's see what that means. Okay? The general. Brilliant stuff. Brilliant stuff. So what does right effort imply? Well, right effort equates with doing things that need doing when they need to be done with the right attitude and copious amounts of love and enthusiasm towards doing it, instead of allowing lop-sided thinking and ridiculous excuses to deter us from attending to matters of primary importance. That's right effort. To do what needs doing, when it needs to be done, with the right attitude, lots of love and enthusiasm, without any ridiculous excuses or lopsided thinking, derailing us from achieving a spectacular life that is of great value to all. That is right effort. So through right effort, we basically place ourselves in rhythm with life. Not out of rhythm, not out of kilter. We place ourselves in rhythm with life. Wake up at the right time, sleep at the right time, gobble at the right time, do things at the right time, rhythm with a life. And how do we do that? By attending to matters of importance in a timely manner, disciplined, timely manner. Right effort, rhythm with a life. Biorhythm matches life's rhythm. Because to keep procrastinating on matters of importance, we're not only postponing our happiness and joy and the discovery of our greatness, but we're also wasting decades of our lives on trivia or on secondary issues, not the skillful. So, what happens when we do not systematically eradicate or eliminate procrastination, distractions, busyness, trivia, and so on? What happens when they keep flooding our consciousness, our lives? Well, when minor challenges, when minor irritations, challenges, issues of the unpleasant variety are not attended to in a timely manner, they proliferate, they mushroom into major catastrophes. When minor challenges are not attended to in a timely manner when required, these small irritations, these small neglected realities mushroom into major catastrophes. Any examples? What happens when we neglect a tiny little cavity? Gas becomes a big cavity. Neglect the big cavity. What happens next? Root canal. Or maybe even an implant. More suffering, more expense, more suffering. What happens when we neglect those little irritations in a marriage? Not being on time for events. Your spouse is waiting, man or woman, and you're still fiddling around. Pretty much every time, late for events. Irritations. What happens when your spouse has to constantly nag you to put the garbage out? It's your responsibility. Your spouse is doing something else. What happens when other irritations are constantly neglected in a marriage? Well, two things are likely to happen. Divorce, sometimes a bitter one, or two people living together under one roof, experiencing an emotional flatline towards each other. No more feelings, cut off. Yeah? Separate lives under one roof for whatever reasons. Yeah? Criticizing, complaining, judging, no love on the horizon. When these little things are neglected, they lead to major fiascos. Yep. All right. Right effort makes us do things which need to be done in a timely manner. Place ourselves in rhythm with life. That is right effort. You see, the thing is, we're all gifted with enormous resources. Enormous resources. Wow, brilliant stuff. And yet, these resources that reach into the heavens are rarely used or utilized by most beings on the planet. It's only the few who discover and express these timeless treasures to enjoy life at its best. The rest struggle and strain and suffering. Why? Because most people have not made the time to put their priorities in order. Yeah. What is of secondary importance, they make into primary importance. What is primary importance, they don't even want to look at. We live in the realm of the absurd. So, what is of primary importance? What's of primary importance? Before I answer the question, let's take a look at a story. Brother Alan, a newlywed, married to this incredibly gorgeous babe, was taking his mother-in-law, a living nightmare, basically. Even though her daughter was gorgeous, she was a living nightmare. Brother Alan was taking his mother-in-law, a living nightmare, through his farm, showing her the farm. This is what we do here, this is this, that. And then they entered the barn. And in the barn, as they were walking through the barn, his adorable mule, gentle, loving creature. Suddenly, as soon as the mother-in-law came near him, reared up and kicked her with his hind legs straight on the chest and killed her instantly. Gone with the wind. Woo! Lord have mercy. Anyway, at the funeral service, people were coming around to pay their respects, and they were saying things to Alan and to his wife. And the priest noticed that whenever a woman said something to Alan, he nodded in the affirmative and whispered a few words. But whenever a man approached him and said something to him, he answered in the negative and whispered a few words. So the priest was quite curious. How is it that women get a positive nod and men get a negative nod? What's going on here? So after the service, he approached Alan and said, "Hey, buddy, I noticed what was going on. Tell me what was that?" So Alan said to him, "Well, when any woman came up to me and said to me, it was such a tragedy that this beautiful woman was killed like this, such a tragedy." And I would nod and say, "Yes, yes, terrible." But when a man came up to me, he was asking if he could borrow the mule. I would say, "He's booked out till next year. Booked out. Sorry, no can." Okay? Silly little joke. What does it tell you? What is the most important requirement? What are we neglecting? Why do we practice the Noble Eightfold Path? What is the purpose of the Noble Eightfold Path? Spiritual clarity. Why is it called noble? Why not eightfold path? Why four noble truths? Why not just four truths, as I explained in the previous classes? It is because these teachings, when well understood experientially, not intellectually, experientially, they ennoble us, raise us from the ranks of the average worldling into the ranks of a saint, yeah, of a really wise being, saint, glowing. Yeah, we practice the Noble Eightfold Path because when we really understand it well, it ennobles us. Ennobles means what? We become endearing to the world around us. Why is it important for us to be endearing to the world around us? Because it immunizes us against crazy catastrophes. When we are not endearing, like the mother-in-law, even a docile mule is stimulated to bring out his dark side. Yeah? But when we are endearing to the world around us, even the greatest weirdo is stimulated to bring out his loving side. That's how it works. Remember the class on loving kindness. What are the 11 benefits of loving kindness? We're loved by the world around us. We are protected, prospered, provided for in amazing ways. That's what it's about. We want to smoothen our journey through life's turbulence, challenges, craziness. Yeah? Smoothen journey. It is a long journey to awakening. So we need to endear ourselves to the world. Helps us wake up a lot faster. Okay? You got that? We are splendidly endowed with resources that reach into the heavens. The only way for us to access these resources is through perfecting ourselves. A selfish, negative person cannot access resources. No can. Only those who work towards personal refinement have the master key to open the treasure chest. Wild stuff coming. Okay? Right effort. Every day, please understand. Every day, our skills are growing and flowing. The question is, which direction? Every day, our skills are growing. The question is, in which direction are these skills growing? Are we growing proficient in being a victim in this world? Complaining, criticizing, judging, and so on? Are we becoming proficient in being victimized by the people and circumstances around us? Or are we acquiring the skill set required for crafting an exemplary life that is of great value to all? Which direction are our skills growing? Are you becoming more peaceful, loving, kind, gentle daily? Or are you agitated and stressed and fearful? Which direction? Wiki. Here's a brilliant story. Ajahn Chah, Thai meditation master from Northeast Thailand. World famous, pretty much. Respected throughout Thailand as a great saint, Ajahn Chah. I have trained in this monastery years ago, in 1986. Yeah, 86. Forest Monastery. Now, Ajahn Chah, lots of followers, and he also attracted quite a number of Westerners. And when his Western students acquired some land to build a monastery up there in England, and they invited him over to check it out, he went across long ago. I think it was in the 80s, possibly 70s, 80s. So there he was in England, Ajahn Chah. And one day, his students, lay students, they were taking him through town, through England, through London, walking him through London, yeah, showing him sights and so forth. They were walking down the streets. And in those days, there used to be skinheads, crazy people, skinheads. So as they were walking down the street, Ajahn Chah in the middle and a couple of disciples on each side of him, from around the corner came a bunch of skinheads with their chains and whatever. And they saw Ajahn Chah, bald head, skinhead, and they took offense. The lay people saw what was going on. They could tell impending danger. So they huddled closer to Ajahn Chah to protect him. Skinheads coming straight for them, straight, yeah? They could tell there was aggression in their eyes, yeah? But regardless of how much they tried to protect Ajahn Chah, one of those fellows pushed straight between one of the disciples and Ajahn Chah and kicked him in the shin and walked on. Just kicked him for no reason. Just crazy kids. And Ajahn Chah stumbled a little. The disciples were horrified at what had just happened, mortified. Yeah? And they asked him, are you okay? Are you okay? And he just looked up, laughed, and he said, London is such a good place to practice acceptance. Such a beautiful place to practice acceptance. Here was a man who had sweated swimming pools of sweat, not even bucketfuls, in his training. That's what made him a saint. Deep practice. And therefore, when something weird like that happened, he was unable to translate it in the negative. Mind, totally unperturbed, like the Greek general, totally unperturbed because of deep practice. No bleeding in the war, baby. No bleeding. No suffering. Yeah, right translations. London is such a great place to practice acceptance. Well, the world is such a great place to practice acceptance. But you may ask now, but Master B, why is it that a saint of his caliber would attract something negative like that? Why didn't they just kick the disciples? Here's another secret. Don't trust the senses. There's more happening behind the senses. It's quite possible that these realities take place as a teaching aid for disciples. This was brilliant, practical teaching aid, not just words. Practical teaching aid that when something crazy happens, you have the power, you have the resources to translate it in the positive. Brilliant teaching aid. Yeah, that's what those disciples needed to learn and pass on the story to thousands of people around the world. And I'm passing it on to you. Yeah, brilliant. Why do these things happen to people like that? Not because they deserve it, but because then, through their practical example, we can learn to model that form of living, that form of thinking, that form of behavior. Exemplary life. When natural catastrophes come visiting, yeah, superstorms, hurricanes, tornadoes, whatever it is, they're coming into the radius of a town or a city, superstorms, yeah, and people are asked to evacuate their homes and run for their lives. What do they generally grab from their homes before they scuttle like hell towards safety? What do they grab first? Usually three things. Money, money, money. Credit cards, money, wealth, jewelry. Yeah. Cannot forget possibly official documents like passports. Yeah. Grab that. But then what else? What else do they grab? Photo albums and other things that remind them of brilliant memories from the past, great experiences, or memories of people that they loved. A photo of a child that was killed in the war, which is irreplaceable. Yeah, grab it, run. Nowadays, it's replaceable because it's all on the cloud. Okay, but in those days, early on, no backups. Grabbed photo albums and everything else that reminded them of the good times they've had in the past with the good people they shared their life with in the past. Basically, they're collecting memories before they scamper. Yeah, wealth, official documents, and memories. Memories. More important than these memories is to have lived in such an exemplary, brilliant manner that if ever somebody wanted to make a movie out of our life, it would be a blockbuster. Yeah, that's far more important. Far more important than those memories. Oh, look how nice. Oh, look how nice. Useless. More important than those memories that people collect and oogle over is to have lived in a fashion whereby before we board the space shuttle, we can think back on our lives and say to ourselves, yep, I really lived. I really lived outside the herd mentality. My life could easily be made into a film that's a blockbuster. That's what's important. Ajahn Chah, brilliant fellow, touched the lives of millions of people worldwide. Yeah, that's what's important. Every day our skills are growing. Which direction are they growing? Are you growing into a better version of yourself? Or are you entrenched in the zombie forest and happy to be hugging those trees over there? So, unless we are truly dedicated to discovering these vast resources we are born with, unless we really dedicated to discovering these treasures we are born with, we remain shackled to, enslaved to a diminished form of living, a substandard form of living. Not pleasant, lot of suffering. So, what exactly is a diminished or substandard form of living? What exactly is it? That's when we live totally convinced that the way we experience reality through our senses and our everyday mind is the way it is. We are locked in appearances, convinced in appearances, and not the invisible forces behind appearances. We can't see them, don't even know about them. That's a diminished life. We trust in our senses, but our intellect and emotions and the five physical senses do not give us an accurate picture of the world. No can do, no can. They lead to a lot of suffering because our intellect and emotions are tuned into illusions, not what's real. And what is real? Our power to transcend anything that perturbs us, anything. That's real. Our power to better our life and circumstances. That's real. Not the illusions. No, no. Pretty much everything is possible when we are truly dedicated to questioning and letting go of our prejudices and opinions. For as long as our prejudices and opinions get the better of us, unverified truths get the better of us, we remain in the ditch. We remain in the ditch, suffering in the ditch. Once again, unless we are truly dedicated to discovering what is finest in us, old imprints from the past, negative, diminishing imprints from the past, continue to rule our lives. These imprints are basically in relation to the outer reality, not what is happening behind it. We're seeing only the effects with these eyes and our senses, only effects. We are not seeing causes. And unless we are able to identify causes and eradicate those causes that lead to suffering, our suffering continues for lifetimes. Intellect and emotions, not skillful guides through life's journey to awakening. What is required is intuition. Intuition, inner sight. That's what's required. We never know just how profound we are, just how supersonic we are, till we enter life's playing field with clarity and confidence. All training based stuff. At a radio interview some years ago, a professional athlete, football player, was asked, "Do you ever consider the ramifications, the massive ramifications of failure during a critical moment in a game?" Yeah, the footballer was asked this question at a radio interview. And what did he say? It's exactly what we don't do. Exactly what we don't do. Because we are taught never to think of failure during such critical moments. Because if our mind veers in that direction, failure is certain. We're taught during those critical moments to think only of the successes we've had in the past. That's where our mind needs to be riveted. If we start thinking of failure, the smallest doubt, we've lost the ball game. Brilliant stuff. Yeah. Do not look at appearances. Look at the power behind the appearances that you have. That's where the power is. We have to rethink. We have to unlearn our prejudices and opinions because they're not serving us. Rethink, question, unlearn those prejudices and opinions. They're not serving us. So it's simply really a matter of doing what needs doing, practicing, creating the foundation. We have to create the foundation on which our practice can work for us. Wishful thinking is useless. We have to prepare the way for our success. We have to cultivate the foundation through which our practice can be a blessing for us without looking over our shoulder for quick results. Are we there yet, Papa? Be quiet. Yeah, without looking over our shoulder for quick results. No impatience, no instant gratification. Do what needs to be done when it needs to be done with the right attitude, love and enthusiasm in place. Because then the wildest things come galloping our way, bringing gifts from beyond to serve us in ways we cannot even imagine. Yeah, the gifts from beyond come to us when we put in sweat in the training. Thing is, we're all born tremendously fortunate. Well, not all, most of us. Most of us are born tremendously fortunate. But again, it's only the few who profit from this good fortune. And who are these few? These are the beings who have understood that good fortune can only work through us, not for us. That's not what good fortune does. Good fortune always works through us, not for us. It's all self-service. Get that point. Very important point. It's all self-service. Remember what I've said in several classes. Unless we provide life with the appropriate consciousness, it cannot serve us. If the consciousness is selfish, negative, it cannot serve us. Yeah, it's all self-service. We need to do the work. Then life can support. Because life is constantly reflecting back to us the nature of our consciousness and the nature of our actions. Two things: our character and our actions. Whatever you find yourself in is a reflection of the kind of person you have chosen to be. When we choose to be wise, the reflection is fantastic. When we choose to be unwise, you need those Nike shoes to run like hell from those hounds of hell coming your way. All right? When we believe life is difficult because personal refinement is not on the radar, when we believe life is difficult, it becomes so. It is reflected to us as difficult. When we believe we have the resources to transform any situation for our betterment, that also becomes so. Because life reflects back to us what we project into it. We need to project the right things in the life. Okay. A fellow traveled across land and sea to meet with this legendary teacher, Master Kendo. He had to meet with Master Kendo, legendary fellow. So there he comes into his retreat center, ashram, whatever you want to call it. Disciples are running around. And before he meets this fantastic master, he speaks with one of the disciples. And he asks the disciple, "Hey, I've heard of Master Kendo, that he works miracles. What's the miracle that he's worked for you guys?" And the student replied, "Well, my friend, where you come from, if God does something uncanny for somebody, yeah, answers their prayer in uncanny ways to help them in their time of distress, that is seen as a miracle where you come from. When God does something uncanny for somebody else. But here, when a student does something uncanny for God, pleases God in extraordinary ways through his character and performance. Over here, that is considered a miracle of an even greater variety. Isn't that brilliant? When God does something for us, we consider that to be a miracle. But the greater miracle is to put the teachings into practice. The greater miracle is self-service. To do something for life, to do something for God, to do something for the universe that's gifted us with so many resources. That's the greater miracle. You see, the precept that we must lose ourselves to find ourselves has been proven to be true over millennia for numberless people. The precept that we need to lose ourselves to find ourselves. has proven to be true for numberless people throughout millennia. So now, my friends, tell me, in a given day, how often do you lose yourself thinking of how you can serve the world instead of constantly thinking of I, me, and mine, my pleasures, my possessions, my prosperity, my. Think about it. How much time in a given day do you forget about your egocentric desires? And how much time do you invest in thinking of how you can contribute value to the world? For as long as your mind is riveted on self-centered, egocentric desires, you will never know joy and self and fulfillment. Cannot. Unless we lose ourselves, we cannot find ourselves. Impossible. Just think. If you asked a physician, supersonic fellow, at the height of his powers, a skilled doctor who really loves his patients, not mercenary. Yeah? If you asked a skilled doctor who really cares for his patients at the height of his powers, yeah, with his 15-hour work days, his midnight calls, the pressures and anxieties that he faces, if you asked him or her if she would be willing to trade this life of hers for a life of idleness in the midst of tranquil surroundings, what would she say? Most likely, buzz off. Here she is, height of her powers, long work hours, midnight calls, pressures and anxieties. She's not willing to trade that for a life of idleness amidst tranquil surroundings. No. She's got her values straight. If you were to ask someone who's retired and now experiences his leisure, wakes up when he wants, does what he wants, how he wants. Yeah. If you ask this fellow if he would trade his leisure to volunteer his services in an organization that's making a positive difference on the planet, something that he was passionate about, he also would like to be part of that. But it requires a lot of effort. Would he trade his leisure for that? Most likely, yes. Most likely, yes. Idleness, corrosive for the mind. Corrosive, diminished form of living. That's not what we want. It's not losing yourself. People who are idle have all the time on their hands. Devil's workshop. Shopping sprees, cobbling, TV gazing. Lord, wasted life. Unless we lose ourselves serving others, we never find ourselves. No can do. No can do. No can do. The greater our caring for the world, the greater we are cared for in return. The greater our service to the world, the greater we are served in return. The more we love life unconditionally, outside of our prejudices and opinions, the greater our fulfillment and joy and health and laughter, supersonic form of living, which those who are entrenched in self centered, negative mind states never experience. No can do. Once again, the more we care for the world, the more we are cared for. The more we serve the world, the greater the service that's offered to us. The universe is at our beck and call. The more we love life unconditionally, the more supersonic our life becomes. Not for those who dwell in self-centered, negative mind states daily. Not for them. It's out of their reach. Supersonic life, out of their reach. To be loved, to be adored, to be cherished, to be needed is one of the richest forms of emotional and spiritual nourishment, richest forms. Whereas not to be loved, not to be adored or cherished, not to be needed is a severe form of psychic deprivation. It destroys us, destroys us. To feel inconsequential, to feel useless, uncared for, very difficult to live with. People usually pop off when they're in this kind of frequency. Depression, suicide, and so on. Yeah? What we put out is what we get back. Put out the right vibes. So right effort basically trains us. Through right effort, we train ourselves to do what needs doing when it needs to be done. Yeah? Realizing this, right effort not only clarifies our priorities, and it not only empowers us to do what really matters when it should be done, but it also empowers us to make sure that we matter in the right way. What? Must we put that? It's not only about doing what matters when it matters, but to ensure that we really matter in the right way. And what does that mean? That's absolutely essential. That's the essence of right effort, the spirit of right effort, that we must matter in the right way. Not just doing what really matters, but we must matter in the right way. Think of Ellen's mother-in-law, a living nightmare. Did she matter in the right way? That she inspired a docile mule to rear up and kick her in the chest and send her straight onto the space shuttle. Did she matter in the right way? Nope. She was rubbing people off, rubbing them out in the wrong way. People didn't enjoy her presence. Life didn't enjoy her presence. Then think of Ajahn Chah and people like him. Mattered in the right way? Definitely. Think of the lives he's inspired towards doing things that really matter. Think of so many people's lives transformed for the better through his presence on the planet. We have to ensure that we really matter in the right way, right effort. Okay, all around the world, at this very moment, there are people, beautiful beings, scampering around like we are, just waiting to connect. Yeah, people we could connect with, love, great friendships, all possible, all potentially all around us. But for us to connect with these friends which we have yet to meet, we have to reach out with the right presence. Because when our presence is not so good, then instead of meeting with really beautiful people, we attract the weirdos into our life. Not a nice choice. Yeah, we have to connect with the world. We have to be endearing enough. We have to matter enough to be endearing enough to attract the right realities to ourselves, because we need support for awakening. Very, very important. Here's an example of what happens when people, instead of reaching out and connecting with the world, all they think of is themselves. And when people live in this manner, this self-centered, selfish manner, exclude the world around them, just look at how brilliantly life seeks them out and zaps them big time. Let's look at it from a story point of view. Okay, let's take a look at a story. How two selfish people, thinking only of themselves, attracted a zap they never ever imagined. Okay, hi. So here's the story. A businessman, rich fellow, big bucks, and his wife, jewelry, and so on. 200 pairs of shoes. Walk-in closet you can't walk into. Stuffed with stuff. Okay, rich fellow with his wife, they were planning their retirement. Okay, they wanted to select a place on the planet, the safest place they could find. They did not like suffering. So they went through almanacs, encyclopedias to check rates of homicide, murders and stuff, crime, to check rates of illnesses, and of course to check prevailing downwinds. Yeah, so that they would not be in the line of prevailing downwinds in case of a nuclear strike. They would be safe, not nuclear garbage coming their way. Yeah, they did everything they could in their power to research the safest place on earth. And they found their haven. Yes, they did. A lot of sweat. And they went and bought this house. Beautiful home. January 1982. But then, April 1982, their home was destroyed. Destroyed! What happened? Which place did they select? Life was watching these selfish beings. Guess which place they selected, the safest haven. And yet their home was destroyed within months. And they had to scamper for their life. The Falkland Islands. Falkland Islands, of all the places in the world. The war between Argentina and England broke out in April 1982 caused a lot of suffering on those islands. The Falkland War. Research it. There they were, South America, Atlantic, South Atlantic. You can't escape from fiascos when you're in this negative, self-centered mind state. You can't escape from it. It'll find you out. We have to reach out and connect with the world. We have to be endearing. That's right, the effort. Are you getting the point? Where there is no struggle towards higher aspirations, where there is no struggle towards higher aspirations, there can be no progress in any area of our life. It's impossible. So to want a fabulous life, all the perks, to want a fabulous life, but to denounce the effort required to make it so, is as ridiculous as to want a fantastic harvest without plowing the land and seeding it and tending the crops. No can do. Yeah, to want a fabulous life without effort. Not happening. It's not happening. A struggle we must have. Everyone has to struggle. Even the Buddha, with his incredible frequencies, 6 years of intense effort before he woke up. 6 years, intense effort. Read his life story. It's mind-blowing stuff. Yeah, a struggle we must have. It's imperative for us to rise beyond our present circumstances into a life that is absolutely supersonic. Struggle we must have. Sweat, 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 sweat. Tears also. Yeah. You see, the thing is, nature, unaided, fails each and every time. That's why we need the struggle. Nature, unaided, fails to serve us each and every time. What does that mean? Well, there's a Chinese saying. It's really quite apt. It says, man must wait very long time with mouth wide open before lost the duck can fly in. Yeah? Man must wait a very long time with his mouth wide open before a roast duck is going to fly in, and it ain't happening. Not happening. You want a roast duck, you got to catch it and prepare it. Yeah? So, it's all self-service. Nature, like good fortune, same, can only work through us, not for us, can only work through us. So how do we aid nature to serve us? We have to build the right habits. You have the habit of laziness and procrastination and negative feelings towards everything and everyone. How can it aid you when the habits are not in place to live a brilliant life? Cannot. We have to build the right habits through which nature can support our intention for a fabulous life. You want a fabulous life? Build fabulous habits. Mediocre habits are not going to get you there. Impossible. So, from all that you've learned so far, how would you define right effort? I've described it in some ways. What are some other ways? Many ways to look at it. Right effort is basically a practical ability. Practical ability which makes us realize that it is far easier to avoid difficulties than to solve them. Far easier. And therefore, we can define right effort as disaster management or prevention of fiascos. Practical ability. Yeah. Disaster management prevents things which are disasters that have not yet arisen. We stay away from planting those seeds. It's a practical ability which makes us realize that trials and tribulations are easier to avoid than to solve. Disaster management. So when we see through right effort, by cultivating our consciousness correctly, when we realize where impending danger is, yeah, alcohol, smoking, gambling, lying, killing, whatever it is, when we are able to really see where impending danger is or where the devil lurks, we can, through right effort, take another course. Because although a clever person is able to solve difficulties, a wise person avoids them altogether. That's right effort. Disaster management. We don't go near disasters. We don't even come close to them. Yeah. Although a clever person is able to solve difficulties, a wise person avoids difficulties altogether. Why get in there in the first place? Why build the wrong habits that take you to the hospital or into the prison or into a life riddled with suffering? Why build the right habits? So the outstanding feature of right effort is that it safeguards us from wrongdoing, procrastination, busyness, distractions, trivia, breaking the 5 precepts, and so forth. Yeah. The outstanding feature of right effort is that it safeguards us from wrongdoing in its many forms, and therefore it smoothens our journey to awakening instead of having more and more obstacles to deal with. All that matters then is that we do what matters when it matters with copious amounts of love and enthusiasm. Enthusiasm has to be there. Love and cherishing has to be there. Because when we do that, when we live well, when we live consciously, that's when we can experience heaven right here and now on earth, not in some distant future. We can experience heaven right here and now through right effort. That's what it's about. Yeah. Those who sweat more in training bleed less in wars, bleed less in this world with suffering, and not like, no like, no like. Any questions? Stay tuned for more. Hallelujah.